All right, so we have three gentlemen here. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, tell you a little about where they're from and what they do. Ooh, you get to sit next to me.
Just like I like it.
All right, why don't we start with you?
So I'm João Carlos Dias, but you can call me John. It's easier for everyone.
I call him John.
Yeah, you would. I come from Portugal, which is a small country on the south of Europe. I'm a broadcaster, so I distribute via television. And if I wasn't here, I probably would be seated next to you trying to get distribution for my own content. Because we talked about forgiveness this morning, you know that. I need to ask for forgiveness for my English just before everything else. So it's like that.
Yeah, hi, I'm Doug Weiss, and I work in marketing and distribution. For a number of years, I've worked with the Jesus Film Project, I worked with Christian Cinema, and now I work for a company called Infinity Concepts.
Mark Harper. I've been in this faith and film space for about 26 years. Have worked for different studios and different distributors over the years. The ministry that I started with, Impact Productions, had a TV movie called Resurrection. It was a 1-hour Max Lucado story that was very similar to the movie Risen that came out many years later. But Tom Newman said, hey, I need you to figure out distribution. I'm like, what's distribution? So learned a lot since then over the years. I like to kind of know who we're talking to. How many of you all have had distribution on a film before? Okay. Was it a feature film? Okay. And then how many of you all are trying to figure out what distribution means just in general? And financial, is that the main interest? How do we make money by distributing our films? Okay. It's good to know.
Awesome. So how did you get started in distribution?
So the channel was created in 2016, and we are cable television. So we are reaching like 98% of the Portuguese, because in Portugal everybody uses cable, and we need content. The distribution side of it is you have 24 hours to fulfill with content. You want to engage with the audience. You want to change the people's perspective. I always tell that my country has like a big curse that is like 70% of the people believe that Jesus is still nailed in the cross. And we need to change their mindset to a Jesus that is alive and can change their lives. So you need great content to change, because everybody knows that one picture it equals like to 1,000 words. Everybody heard something like that. But the moving picture, like a film, can like 1 billion of words. So it can change really the perception of something. It could change. It could connect with your emotions. It could bring you to God. A good movie can bring you to God. So yeah, that's the need that we have of content, and we need to make a quest to try to get it from the content producers like you guys.
How about yourself?
Yeah, for me, I started in distribution when I was at the Jesus Film Project. We were producing short films that were used to start spiritual conversations, and it had such a huge response to it that we started a thing called the Global Short Film Network. So we started producing films and then distributing them like all over the world. I mean, the Jesus Film already had that history of doing that, but this was in a kind of a newer context of using short films that were narrative. And so that was kind of my first inroads to what distribution was all about.
So I told you my story. I'll give you a recent example of distribution, though. The animated Pilgrim's Progress movie that Revelation Media produced, that's one of the teams I work with. We put that out in theaters through Fathom Events, which is a type of theatrical release that's very economical and helps your film get what I call reach and revenue, which I've got a slide. I don't know if they were able to pull that up or not. They are, okay. If they can put that slide up, it'll just give you kind of a framework. So when I was told find distribution, back in the day, it's like, okay, what does that mean? What am I reaching? Well, you first have to know the type of film that you're making. So theatrical film has a certain type of distribution. Fathom is one of those options now. Fathom Entertainment, they've changed their brand up. That's called Event Cinema, but now they're becoming a traditional theatrical distributor because they've done so well with The Chosen and The Blind and some others. So you put the type of film that you're making on one side of the triangle there. That's going to dictate your type of marketing. And you can really divide distribution up into two things. It's about reach, it's about revenue. You're making a film to reach an audience, but you also need that film to monetize in some way, whether it's ministry or whether it's a for-profit production. You can't keep reaching people if you don't have revenue. And so that's how I define distribution. It's reach and revenue. And reach really has a lot to do with the message and what has God breathed into your project that he's given you to take out to the world. And the revenue really depends on the distribution mechanics. So one of the greatest distribution platforms on earth is YouTube. And now every single filmmaker here could create something on YouTube and potentially reach millions of people. There's actually a friend of mine, he's brought his son with him. He's an influencer. He's probably reached, let's exclude the Kendricks and maybe a few others. He's reached millions of people through his TikTok and YouTube and social media. And that's just amazing. That's the world we live in. I was telling them probably in 2 years, this conference, at least half of it will be about that type of media. But the story and the message is obviously central. But then if you divide that inside, then the distribution's on the right side of that triangle, and the message and the reach and the story part's on the left. So qualitative versus quantitative. And that dictates your marketing strategies. So marketing is also distribution because you need sales, because you need revenue, or you need donations. I went really long, so sorry about that.
No, that's great. If you guys do have questions, use the app, put them in, and then if I'm just going to keep asking questions I want to know, unless you guys hit me up. So what do you guys look for? Say somebody has a project, they have no marketable IP, no one's really in it, but the story's great, and it's their first film, so they really have no backing as well. How do they approach distribution?
I think the easiest way is like something like the pitchathons, or trying to get the distribution all together in something like this, like both of them, maybe me, talk. We are always around. And I would say, from my experience in pitchathons, I've been like in 4 or 5, the first 30 seconds are really important. So you need to have your idea really well together, and maybe some promotional, like a poster or some kind of sign-ups. Because the first 30 seconds are really important. Sometimes there are some hidden gems, people that we are thinking that it's nothing really good, but afterwards you understand, no, there's something really good after. But you need to engage really rapidly, really fast, because this kind of people, they are receiving a lot of things all together. I was talking yesterday with Stephen, and Stephen was telling that they were receiving like thousands of pitches on email and via postal and so on. So you need to really engage really fast, because if not, your good idea could be just one more idea.
Yeah, I would add, so if somebody has a film and they come to me and they are looking for distribution, I ask them, well, who is the audience of the film? Like, who are they wanting to reach? Because that gives me an idea. It's like, okay, if I go and watch the film, did they accomplish, creating a story that's going to reach that audience? And then, understanding too, what is the kind of the central focus of the film, like, what's a quick summary of it. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, audience is what I would have said too. I agree. You got to know who you're going after. A lot of people will say, oh, we're going after everyone. Then that means you really don't know for sure what your film is and who you're reaching in most cases. In one of the sessions we were doing earlier today, we talked about a 4-quadrant film. four quadrant. You put age on one axis and you put male and female on the other. So is this for little boys and for old grandmothers? Then that's a 4-quadrant film, and you really do have something that's for everyone. Chronicles of Narnia was a blockbuster theatrical release that was pretty much for everyone, but not real young boys and girls, depending on parents and what they let their kids watch. But yeah, audiences, in my opinion, the number one thing that you have to really zero in on when you know what you're making for that audience.
Well, how do you go about finding and vetting a trustworthy distributor? And at what stage should they do this?
So I think it's on the word. By the fruits you will know them. So try to find if they are character-wise, if they have a good name in the industry, what were the results of their last projects, what is their main goal? Is just the money? Is the reach? It's both. It's God-worthy. So I think I would go that way.
Yeah, I'd say I would talk to at least, if you want a minimal, talk to at least 3 distributors, but more the better, and then talk to other filmmakers who've had films distributed and ask them what their experience has been with that particular distributor you've talked to, or if you haven't talked to the distributor they used, ask for their feedback. So those kind of 2 simple things actually will make a huge difference.
I think there's a trap sometimes filmmakers fall into that if you build it, they will come. If I get this film done, funded, then we'll figure out distribution. And I'd say you got to do your homework on the front end. You already have to know what type of film that you're making and then coming up with a comp. And I've seen a ton of different pitches for films, and they're comparing themselves to the big blockbuster Christian movies, and or even some of the new series that are starting to get a lot of popularity, Vindication, These Stones, and some others. And they say, well, it's like this. And it's like, well, just because you have an episodic drama that's faith-based, that doesn't make it necessarily just like Vindication, right? It's like Vindication in what ways? Are you at a comparable budget that Vindication was done? And that sometimes takes homework. It takes going to workshops, listening to those filmmakers who do those workshops and tell you about how they made their film, relationships to build, to be able to ask them, hey, what was your budget on this? And I always tell filmmakers, I'm under this amount. Like, you don't want to say, oh, we got a $14,000 budget on our short film. We're under 100,000. You're not lying. You don't want to be judged right away and categorized as something that you've done is insignificant. But again, these days with distribution, the Butterfly Circus short film, I think it was about $250,000 budget, 250,000, and that's had 100 million views, probably more than that. It's 100 million a year ago. And we translated Butterfly Circus into Bulgaria, and we're showing it in public schools, and that's distribution. And we have a curriculum that's not based on the film, it's based on anti-bullying, but we use the film to get into public schools in Bulgaria. My wife's from Bulgaria. And so I got off track from that question, I think, quite a bit.
No, you didn't.
But,
No, that was
okay.
What is the number one thing to avoid when seeking distribution for your project?
Thinking that you have the last cookie on the jar. Your movie, it's great, probably, but you need to accept the critic. I think sometimes people come, and I will give you an example that we lived in NRB on the Pitchathon. I was dining with some of the other distributors, and we were talking. Everybody's pitch was like Megalomon. So it's like Nazis and bombs and explosions and subs and going to Mars, and everything that everybody was pitching was really, really expensive. And I don't know if you noticed, but the Christian filmmaking industry, it's not that budgets opened. So usually the budgets are really, really slim. So yeah, there are big projects and there are projects that are really expensive, but even so, even if you compare something like The Chosen with something from Fox or from other channels, they are not that expensive. So yeah, think wisely and don't think that your project will be the last cookie on the jar or the final Coke on the desert. Think that your project needs to be adapted to the reality, to the audience, to the reach that you want to engage, and listen. I would say in Portuguese we have a saying, I don't know if it works in English, that we have 2 ears and a mouth for one reason, because we need to listen more than we need to speak. So yeah, listen to critics, listen to the people that run the path already, and adapt, because when you adapt, you evolve and you get closer to your goal.
Yeah, I would say the one thing to avoid is not doing your due diligence on the distribution agreement with the distributor. So you understand what you're getting into, read it. If you don't understand legal information, have somebody who understands that, like a lawyer, read it. So do your due diligence, and because if you're talking to a distributor and they really want you to sign your project, and that's what your goal is, it's like, oh wow, I got this distributor. But if you haven't done the homework on everything, then that could come back to haunt you.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that I've seen sink a lot of film projects is unrealistic expectations. Even with distributors that say, hey, I talked to a filmmaker, but they are thinking this. And if they think that filmmaker is not going to move off of their expectations, they would rather not work with them, because that filmmaker will be disappointed. I thought this was going to be a theatrical release. I thought this was going to do $5 million in the box office or $10 million, because Facing the Giants did $10 million in the box office. And it was a $100,000 film, which technically it wasn't. It was, well, I don't know if I should say budgets out loud. Anyway, unrealistic expectations can really sink a distribution relationship pretty quick. So I think distributors themselves are experts at knowing what they've done, what they can do. So listen to them, ask questions. You definitely don't want to pitch a kids' episodic series to someone that's looking for dramas. You got to make sure you know what they're distributing and what they're good at distributing. But unrealistic expectations in this whole field, I don't ever like calling it a business, because it's more than that. It's a ministry to all of us too. But in this field, unrealistic expectations is the biggest downfall.
Yeah, and I think it leads to what you were saying a little bit ago. I think you got to check your heart when you're a filmmaker on, why did you make this? Did God call you to make it? Great. I'm not saying give away the store or anything, but if God called you to make it and he's lined up a distributor, they're on your side. They want to push your movie out to anyone they can. So going in saying, oh, I think they're going to try to take advantage of me, that's not the case, because they become more profitable if you're profitable, because you're going to go out and make another movie. But check your heart when you're going in there, because it's like, man, God, I want you to open and close the doors. I want your will to be done. And if, for instance, Butterfly Circus, you translated it, now it's reaching other people in another country. Man, praise the Lord for that. So you got to be willing to make your film the way God told you to make it, and be excited about the fact that you did what he told you to do. Like, whether anybody else sees it or not, you follow God's will. Just like I've shared with somebody, God told Isaiah, I'm going to tell you to go to Moab. This is what you're going to say. You're going to go and no one's going to convert. And Isaiah followed the Lord. He went to Moab. He shared what God told him to share, and no one converted. And the Bible says God was pleased with Isaiah. So there's a misnomer, I think, that, this distribution company here is going to try to take advantage of me, or this. And again, they said, do your due diligence. Ugh. Terrible moderator.
You speak Portuguese also?
Right? Yeah, that was for you. What is the number one thing to avoid when seeking distribution for your project? Oh, I think that's what we just said, yeah. Let's see. Can you give us some best practices for online releases?
I would say test. Because platforms like YouTube, the algorithm is changing every day. So you need to test the thumbnail, you need to test the description, you need to test the tags, you need to have several different approaches, because sometimes on 1 hour of the day, one thumbnail and one description works really well. And at the other hour, the other thumbnail and the other description will work even better. So test. And again, be careful with the quality, I would say, because everything that goes for internet, it's eternal. So be careful on what you do, what you say, how do you do it, because that will be there forever. So if you are a young actor or a young director, and you are not sure about the quality of that, don't put it. Because 10 years from now, when you are trying to do your first feature film or something, somebody will see that. Somebody will use that against you. Somebody will try to deceive you because of that. So be careful with what you do, with everything that you do in your life, actually, but online even more, I would say that. And afterwards, and I don't know what they will say, but afterwards I will say that distribution as a process. So usually it should be something like theatrical, if good enough. Then the paid platforms, right, like streaming and so on. Then television, and at least the online for free, the last one. That should be the natural path. But if you are trying to get the step on the door because you aren't already there, online is a great solution. But even so, with some carefulness. Portuguese.
If I can plus on that, Jared Giese, he's a chief distribution officer over at Angel Studios. He used to be president of ICVM, longtime friend. He was I guess the Downs brothers were founders of Christian Cinema, but Jared became a key part of Christian Cinema along with you, Doug. Jared put it in a great way last week at NRB, or whenever that was, 2 weeks ago. He said, think of it in your cost per transaction. So theatrical is your highest cost of transaction because of the amount of money that you're going to pay to like take your family to the theater. The next high cost is usually premium video on demand. So it's out of theaters. It isn't available widely yet for rental, which is the $4.99 range. So you put it online for like $19.99 for a limited time. And people who have an affinity for that story and they're the right audience, then they'll pay that because the cost to take their family to go see it is greater. I'm a little cheap. If I don't get that copy, like I'm not going to pay that fee for a temporary rental. I'll just wait for the rental period to come, for the $4.99 rental. And I don't even know that I rent movies multiple times anymore. Like there's just so many films. And so, but if you think about that cost per transaction each time, and then advertising video on demand, AVOD or free TV, Tubi, Pluto, those kind of platforms, you know, you're getting paid a very low amount per transaction. And then even streaming like Prime, I think I don't even know what the rate is. You probably know better than I do of what they'll pay you per minute watched. I mean, you just start getting tiny. And then obviously YouTube is free, but it can be monetized through ads. But I thought that was a good way to think about it, is that your cost per transaction, you don't want to do AVOD out of the gate. You want to try to put it up somewhere at a higher price. If you're not going to have a theatrical release, because we're talking about online releases, then knowing that audience of who is most interested in that film for a PVOD transaction is where you're going to make your most amount of revenue, most likely. So.
Yeah, I'll add too, another good thing or way to utilize online releases is like if you have a short film and you're thinking about making a feature out of it, you know, put the short film online and just, you know, build an audience behind that. And also if you're producing a series, you know, release the pilot or the first episode online and get, you know, traction off of that. So that helps as well. And that's even before you're, you know, even doing a project. So that's another way of using online.
I think John also said testing. Is that what you said earlier? And the Angel Guild, I mean, Jared invites this. You pay a fee, you put it on the Angel Guild, and you're going to get, I believe that they show it to like 1,000 people or a few hundred people, and you're going to get feedback on your film right away. We really love this, or we didn't like it. We thought it was boring. We lost my interest. Like you'll get there's a lot of filmmakers in that community. You can tell based on some of the feedback they give you, but it would cost probably $1,000 to do your own test market where you like rent a theater and you do marketing and you do surveys and you data enter those surveys. So the Guild is actually a great tool. There are more equity crowdfunding platforms coming. GoodWorks, Hub.com is a new one. They did a crowdfund around the film Green and Gold that released in theaters earlier this year as a Fathom release. They're going to have a community also called The Assembly. And that'll be another place where you can put out a film or a segment of your film or a pitch video, and you can get feedback on how many people are interested in this. Because you might think it's the most important thing, most important story that needs to be told, and God may have put that on your heart, but you still have to find out who resonates the most with that message and that story. So.
All right, are there any distributors we should stay away from?
S3? No, just kidding.
Who wants to say that?
Oh, man.
So yeah,
It's like,
without saying names, so because yeah, that's a loaded question. But I would say stay away from the distributors that I guess don't have a lot of experience distributing a particular type of film, say faith-based. If you look at their catalog and it's all horror films, or it's all it's like, okay, they're not gonna have that. They're not gonna know the audience. So I would look at the distributor's catalog and what they're trying to present to you, and that will help you decide. Okay, I need to stay away from them.
It's a hard question, because if you're talking to a distributor and they're promising you the world, and you're starting to get it's hard, because if it's your film, you get excited about what they're telling you the film might do. But I do know that there are some distributors that are trying to sign up a bunch of films because they want to have a big catalog, because they want to grow a large audience. And so track record, just look at their track record. And I think probably most people here are making faith-based films and overtly Christian films. And so, a secular distributor in most cases is not going to give you a great deal or care a lot about your film. And it shouldn't be you shouldn't be paying a distributor to distribute a film for you. Now, paying for marketing might be different. Hey, we have this distribution outlet. If you pay this amount, this is what we think we can give you. But is it someone that does what they say they're going to do? Do they call you back when they say they're going to call you back? Do they meet with you when they promise to meet with you? Just let that integrity and that track record speak for itself. But we can't name names. You can talk to me afterwards.
And because we are at Sherwood Church, you can act like the Kendricks and pray, 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 pray. And ask to God, is this the right person? Yeah. Do I feel that this is the right kind of connection? Does this company works for what I'm trying to look for? So yeah, pray.
What are the top 3 things a distributor wants to know about your project when deciding whether to work with you?
I'm always the first. This doesn't sound like but Justin, it's not just. For me, it would be like costs, the quality, and the duration of if it's a movie or a series. Because if it's a movie, it needs to be like at most 1.5 hours. More than that, it's too long for television. If it's a series, how many seasons do you have? How many episodes? How long are they? So for me, it's like, because I think television, I don't think theatrical. But even theatrical, I would say that they don't like big movies because it's less slots for displaying. But yeah, I would think costs, duration, and quality.
I think cost is the very first thing that came to my mind because of that thing I mentioned earlier about unrealistic expectations. So if you've got a film that you say have $500,000 into, and you're really hoping that they're going to generate more revenue than what it costs you to make, they want to know that on top of hand, because they may say, the most amount of revenue we're generating on this kind of a film is this much. Who you think the intended audience is going to be something that they ask you. And then also, what kind of feedback are you getting from your film, if it's a finished film? If it's a distributor that you're looking to get them interested in your film before you've made it, you really ought to be asking them the questions. I didn't mention this earlier, but I think this is important. With so many streamers these days, the days of the exclusive are almost gone, because a streamer that wants an exclusive deal oftentimes can't pay you what you had to spend to make it. And so, who in the room remembers VHS tapes? Anyone? Okay, a lot of people, good. So back in the days of VHS, you actually had to have a ton of retail stores that were carrying that VHS product on their shelves for customers to find. And streamers these days have really become those stores again. Oh, we're Pure Flix, we're Christian Flix, we're Fish Flix. You know, there's all these different streamers now, and you need to do as many licensing deals as possible to get to all of those. Now, back in the day of VHS, there was Family Christian Stores and Lifeway and Berean and Parable that were all big Christian retail groups, and there were distributors that you could work through to get into those places. It's harder now to find that kind of thing. You could do your own distribution deals. You can sign deals directly with PureFlix, but you know, finding someone of the middle person that can help you connect with all those places and know where all those places are. There are people doing it. I just wouldn't say that there's anyone that's their specialty yet, because you can go do some of the major distribution outlets yourselves. But just, I would say, avoid an exclusive where they want it for a really long time, where they want to pay you, you know, a lower fee, and you're just dying to get an audience at that point. You know, do a non-exclusive deal, or do a short period, a window, and let them have the debut, and then go license it out to lots of the other streaming networks.
Yeah, I'll add that a lot of what they've said I would put in the top three. The one other thing I would add is, you know, a distributor is going to ask, you know, if you have all your release forms signed, like music release, you know, actor releases, everything like that. So I was looking at one film one time, and they didn't have any of their releases. So it's like we couldn't take it. So that's very important that you just have like all your kind of releases you know, collected or in order.
Yeah, and Larry Frenzel did a workshop either earlier today or yesterday about deliverables, and that's what they want to know. All the different art files, all the different, you know, specifications, everything that you've got. They have a whole list of deliverables, and that's something they'll definitely want to know too, if it's a finished product.
All right, let's see. What does a submission packet look like, or how would you like to receive a submission packet?
That first.
Yeah, I would say if you have like a just a kit that is you know, has like information about the film, some of the actors, a screening link, you know, something that's easy to access. A lot of times screening links are password protected, so you kind of have to you know, get that worked out. But something that you can, you know, take with you. You know, if somebody you know, hands you something that like is not easy to access, or you know, easy to you know, garner the information about the film, then it's, you know, harder to, you know, really get into it and, you know, make a decision. So I think a good kind of just a packet of information and is good.
Cover art, you know, there's a lot of great tools available now. Fiverr with independent, you know, artists, AI that can create cover art. Particularly if you're on a budget, you don't have the money to pay a really good $12,000 agency to do a cover art for you. And if you're even pre-production, then just using some of those resources to come up with really great cover art and other imagery that you can use in your pitch packet. Trailer would be the next one if you've got a finished film, or even if you've filmed a proof of concept. That's becoming a very popular thing because of Angel Guild, because they originally started with The Torch, which a lot of people don't know that the Statue of Liberty was a crowd-funded project, and that's where they came up for the name Torch. But the Torch used to be a pitch video, but they've evolved. Now a Torch is a segment of your film, or a proof of concept that they know that you can write, or that you can put the team together to write, shoot, and edit something that people go, yeah, I would be sad if that wasn't made. So I think key art and trailer are probably the two things that I would be looking for the first.
I'll give you some inside information because I've been in some pitchathons. And at the ending, imagine there are like 20, 25 distributors, each one with their desks. And at the end, when everybody done their pitch, the distributors choose some stuff and the rest stays on the desk or goes to the garbage, because there's a lot of stuff that they don't get. So I'll give you two good ideas. One, be creative. I received stuff in thumb drives with a lot of painted by hand. I received someone gave me a tablet, you know, a Kindle, with their movie on it. And I kept it. Yeah, the movie wasn't great, but the tablet was. So, no, just kidding, the movie was great. But yeah, sometimes be creative. Give something that you would keep, okay? Because if it's just a piece of paper, it needs to be a great piece of paper. If it's not that great and you are just starting and you need to, again, put your foot on the we call it put our foot in the door. Do you use it in English? No? Yeah? Put the foot on the door because if the foot is there, the door won't close. So if you need to put your foot on the door, create something that is creative and that you would keep, because these guys received a lot of stuff, so they need to receive something special to keep and to remind that you exist. Because next time you call with one step further in quality, one step further in the script, because now you have the actors, because now you have the team, they will remember you because you were the guy that gave them something creative, something different. And the other thing, for the ones that they are already there, keep it simple. I learned it a lot of years ago. Keep it simple, because if you keep it simple, if you have like a good synopsis, a good cover page with the poster of the movie, if all the information is there, the crew, the cast, the time, it's simple, easy to read. I want this. I have all of the information. I'll keep it. So this would be my 2 suggestions.
I'll give you 2 examples. Did anyone see the movie To Save a Life? It was a movie for teenagers to try to prevent suicide. And when we sent out the submission kit, or somebody called it a submission packet, but when we sent out our pitch deck, we actually took a 3-ring binder and we wrapped it in denim, and we had screen printed on the denim the logo for the film, because it's a film for teenagers. So I would probably bet you that's the only denim wrapped, pitch they'd probably gotten that year. So it stood out. And we ended up, Samuel Goldwyn Films said yes to the film. We had worked with them before on other films, but we were pretty proud of the creativity that went into that. The other one is a movie I'm working on right now where I thought, I don't want to just send a pitch deck with good visuals. Like, we live in visual media and we have all these tools available to us like AI. So I created a 10-minute story reel. And I used the stories about a coach who will be 96 this year. And at first I was looking on Fiverr for voice artists, and I thought, Coach has a great voice. Let me just go record him and see how that goes, and had written the script for him to narrate. And then I just put AI images. I had to create about 1,400 AI images to choose for about 250, because that's the first time I'd ever used Midjourney, which is like $20 a month or $30 a month to get in. And there are little YouTube videos you can watch to learn how to use some of the tools and recreate recurring characters so it doesn't look totally different in each scene. But it's about a 10-minute story reel. It's also got some of the real pictures from Coach, so it kind of got blended together. And that helped both potential distributors I'm talking to, potential investors, and crew that I'm trying to get to be part of the film, to get a real sense for the story and to tap into that emotion, because, right, that's what our films are about. It's about tapping into emotions. And so use those tools available to you, Some people think, it's not ethical to use AI or art or different things, and I know there's different opinions about that, and I think you can use them for different things. But when you're on a budget and you can't afford to hire a storyboard artist, then use AI and create some storyboard art or like a story reel like what I did. And 8gamestoglory.com, you can go and see that story reel.
What is the best way to contact a distributor? Mark?
LinkedIn is probably one of my favorites. IMDb Pro is probably the second best resource to be able to really get to information of the people that can tell you who the right person to talk to is. National Religious Broadcasters Convention, ICVM, that's where you get to meet some of the distributors, face to face. Film screenings. The filmmakers are generally there, or their distributors or their marketing company are usually there. So that's the best way, I think, to contact the distributors.
Yeah, I would second ICVM, because you can meet the distributors face to face, and so that is both a pitch-a-thon for unfinished films and also a film market where you can submit a finished product, and so you can get in front of. What's the most that have ever been at that 30 or 20, 25 distributors, like all in one place at the same time. So. NRB, I had 30. Okay.
An elevator, because he can't run from you. Yeah. After the doors are closed, you have like 30 seconds, and you have like to do your pitch. No, I'm kidding, but I'm being serious. Because again, it's not just about to get contact. It's about engaging with the distributor. Because you can have 30 seconds with Doug, you can have 30 seconds with Mark, but those 30 seconds will guarantee you the distribution? No. You need to present them something that engage with them, that engage with the audience that they know that they can get. So yeah, it's not about it's not the way about contact, but how do you make contact, I would say.
And if after the 30 seconds they're running to get off the elevator, don't chase them.
Yeah.
They will remember you and see you and avoid you.
And if they call 911, it's even worse.
What is the best way to distribute our 8-episode? Is it 550? It's 58 30-minute. Is that all together? Is that all 8 episodes, or is that per episode?
Each episode.
Each episode. Okay. Minute Christian sitcom for television broadcast.
Come to me, I'll put it in Portuguese.
Yeah, I'll add to this. So if you're working with wanting to distribute an episodic film or episodic show to a Christian television station, Christian television stations are very different than commercial. They're non-commercial, so you usually have to pay to play. So very different from a film model.
You don't have to pay me.
Yeah.
I won't pay you, but you don't have to pay me.
Yeah.
It's a better deal.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So, so if you can work with a company that works with TV distribution. Some film distributors have that ability, but you kind of want to look into that. But there is, if you distribute a show to a commercial broadcast station, they're probably going to pay you. So those I've kind of just had those few caveats about that.
Up TV comes to mind as, like, think of the largest audience first, but Up TV is not overtly Christian. It's more faith-friendly as opposed to like faith-based or faith-driven, I should say. So I have 3 categories: family-friendly, which is barely faith, but faith's in there. It's sincere. It just may not be that present. Faith-friendly is more, faith is definitely part of the characters or the story, and then church-friendly, it's evangelistic. So Up TV is definitely in the family-friendly, faith-friendly category. The next one down would be like Great American Pure Flix. That would be, they've done episodics. Affirm is still doing, they still have Affirm TV. They're trying to develop, series, dramas, and PureFlix says rom-com and holidays, but I think that'll evolve over time. And then another thing to think about, just depending on what the film is and how much time you have, is doing distribution yourself, putting the pilot out there. There's a film called Promised Land. Has anybody seen that one yet? It's a comedy. It's like The Office meets The Chosen, but around the life of Moses. And they put it online for free. They've had over 1 million views on YouTube. And now when they launch their the rest of the season, their second episode, there'll probably be a lot of people that would be either willing to pay for it or give an email or subscribe to a channel. So depending on how much time you have before you have to pay back investors and what the film is and who the audience is, you might be able to start. I mean, no one ever would have thought that The Chosen would become its own destination for distribution. It was Angel that helped launch it, but now you go to the Chosen app, So just depending on what it is and what the demand is, think about, don't discount direct-to-consumer distribution yourself.
Let's see. Can you give a brief outline on how to start distribution?
Let's see. How to start distribution. So I'm assuming this is not distribution company, but to start
I think like a plan.
a plan. Yeah. So what you want to do is first identify who your audience is, who you're trying to distribute it to, and then identified some distribution companies that would probably be a good fit for your film, and then look to contact those distributors, try to set up meetings, and then prepare your pitch that you're gonna bring to them. And so once you kind of have that meeting, then you can go to them, and you're going to hand them your project. They're going to hear your pitch, but then the key is to follow up. So I wouldn't wait for them to follow up with you. Is definitely follow up with them, and then try to engage, keep the conversation going from there.
I think I would start with comps. This is actually more of like a workshop kind of a question than like a panel question. But start with comps. Like what other films are out there that are like what you either have made or that you want to make? If you made it without knowing your district, then you're kind of already out of sequence. Like you really do need to do the homework on the front end to know where you think the distribution will go and who the audience is for those distribution outlets. But looking at comps is the best way, I think, to start. Box Office Mojo is the theatrical database. The numbers used to have, it still has some home entertainment numbers on it. It's harder and harder to get those numbers because they don't like to publicize. Like Netflix doesn't tell you, well, they do have their like top 10, but they don't tell you how many total streams a film had. You don't get like Nielsen ratings for a lot of shows these days that are on streaming. But start looking for comps.
How does domestic and international distribution differ?
This one is for me, because for Americans, you don't imagine a world so different of yours, because yeah, it's really different. You can't imagine. In Europe, per se, there's I would separate the north from the south of Europe, but something like a Christian channel in some countries is completely forbidden. You cannot speak the gospel on television. You cannot end a news report with something godly. It needs to be really separated. So things like The Chosen, Vindication, I Can Only Imagine, a lot of stuff that are big hits over here, there are just residual. Imagine that. I never heard about The Chosen until I come to America, because in there it wasn't a thing. At least, no, it wasn't a thing. It came much, much later. But yeah, so when you are thinking different perspectives, I would say I would create a premium market, which is America, Canada, Brazil, and then some regions of South America. Those were the great markets, the markets where there's real money to be made. And then everything else, because if you think Europe like Africa, it's not that different. I work with actually 3 African countries. We have sub-channels in Angola and Mozambique. And the information that gets there, Christian information that gets there, it's very small, it's very slim. So it's completely different. So, or you think about reach, and you think about seeding. Yesterday we listened about Philip talking about broadcasting as giving seeds to the field. Anybody else? For me, and I'm not really trying to get my point of view in place, but things like Europe, things like Africa, main as the big Asia countries, are more for seeding than for getting revenue, or more for getting people there, getting Jesus there, like a project of your heart than a project for making money. That's my point of view, especially for Christian content. I'm gonna give you an example. I'm gonna look at your faces. Do you know The Sound of Freedom, the big box office event that it was in the United States? In Portugal, it was released on the weekend between Christmas and New Year. I'm going to repeat. Yeah. The release date of the Sound of Freedom was the week between Christmas and New Year, and it kept on screens like for 3 weeks. And it was promoted as a film with Jim Caviezel. Period. It wasn't a Christian movie. It wasn't the angel movement, all of the crowdfunding, the talk with the things about Disney, all of those controversies that you listen here, they're zero. It was a movie with Jim Caviezel. It's going to premiere on this week, period. So it's completely different. It's a completely different mindset. And something like The Promised Land, it's like for a narrow crowd that knows that something is happening. And I'm a big promoter there because I watched it in ICVM first. But yeah, it's very residual. So don't think that you're going to get rich with Europe. Gonna get rich with Africa. You don't gonna get rich with Asia. You're going to get rich with Brazil because they have the money and they have the means and they have the audience to pay for it because they really love the gospel. And they have a cultural Christian scene. They are starting to produce their own movies now, some with pretty good quality. But yeah, so it's a different market, it's a different mindset. And I know that there are Catholics here, but countries with Catholic on power are completely different of Catholics that are residual. So you need to go there, feel the thing. He knows Bulgaria, so he knows a little bit about the reality of those countries. But yeah, it's completely different mindset. And sometimes we need to adapt the content because some things that you put on your movies doesn't make sense for those realities. And in some countries, being non-Catholic, being Christian but non-Catholic, it's almost being pursued. So we need to adapt some things. Not in our case, in Portugal, we have some censorship, but it's mostly political. But even so, we need to adapt some content.
I would add, we talked a lot about the more commercial side of licensing and distribution, but also just, I think, in my experience, thinking about international more from a giving of a ministry standpoint, not like in domestic, we're like, okay, what can we get? What are we going to get for this? What kind of license fee am I going to get? How much revenue is it going to generate? I think international, think of it more even as a, how can we take this message to more places? How can we serve them? Is this story going to be able to translate into other cultures? It's not, depending on the story, it's not going to have a significant amount of revenue overseas unless you're working with international distributors ahead of time. Frans Cronje in South Africa has done a really good job of trying to figure out, okay, what would worldwide distribution look like for this particular film? The animated story of Jesus was actually working on that same thought. And then it turns out there's 2 animated films about Jesus coming out this year. There's one called Light of the World. They're going to show that tonight. And it's a ministry model after it launches in theaters. So ministries around the world will be able to take that film and use it in what they're doing and who they're reaching. Revelation Media also is a nonprofit, and the animated Pilgrim's Progress movie. We gave an exclusive to a couple of countries that were putting a lot of distribution effort into that country. Animation translates way better for international revenue potential in addition to ministry reach. And so we would give an exclusive for a short period of time, but after that short exclusive, we made that film available for free. We don't want any missionary or church anywhere in the world to be prevented from using that film for ministry. And I think God honors and blesses that also. So,
yeah, I'll add to that. When you work with a distributor, you could do what's called carve-outs. So if you work with a distributor for, say, U.S., but they don't do international, you could say, okay, I'm do non-exclusive in U.S. Then you could go to another distributor who would do international. So you can actually, use multiple distributors for your project. You just have to make sure they understand the territories, if it's exclusive, non-exclusive. But if you put each one as a non-exclusive, then you have more freedom of what you could do with it.
I just want to add something. I'm trying to get some I won't say names, but I'm trying to get some content from the United States, some big shots content, and the great distributors, the big houses of distribution, that are not just for faith, they don't have the scale to understand those markets. Because you need to understand, someone from Hollywood, they have like $50,000 to create a contract. So if I want a movie that will cost like $10,000, for them it doesn't make sense. The math doesn't add up. Even if I'm willing to pay like $10,000, which for me it's a lot of money, for them it's nothing because they will be minus 40 because of the contract that they need to pay for their lawyers. So if you were thinking about internationalization for a project like that, I would, and this is, now I'm putting my hand on my heart, but I would separate international. Because those kinds of productions, and I'm talking about big movies that I saw here a few Christian Worldviews ago, I can't get it. And even for a lot of money for my standards, I couldn't get them because, or I will put like 6 or 7 movies together and then it will add up to like $67,000, $80,000. And then, okay, we're gonna make like 20, 30,000, so okay, I'll give it to you. But they would prefer to give it to me for free, but they can't because of the contracts and the lawyers. So scale on these kind of countries, like I'm talking about Portugal, Spain, France, I know that Nigeria is also trying to get it. Angola, Mozambique, we don't have the scale to pay like $100,000 for a movie for television. But for them, it doesn't make sense because of the lawyers and the contracts and so on. So Doug just said the thing about carving. I would separate the international from these 3 big movements. I would say United States, Brazil, Canada, Mexico. South Africa. I would keep the big ones as big as you can. Everything else, I would keep it on a smaller scale for someone that understands those kinds of countries.
We're right at the end of our time, but one distribution outlet I'm embarrassed I failed to mention is the church. So church movie events. Facing the Giants was seen as many times in a church setting as it was in the theatrical setting. That wouldn't have been possible if they hadn't done their theatrical. But there are films that don't go theatrical and they go into a church film distribution kind of a setup. The White Rose, there's a documentary, 1619 Project, is that the right number, right name? It's a pro-life film, and they've had like 1,400 church showings. And so now when they turn around, they're gonna go license it to some of the other streaming outlets. They've got a huge audience that already knows about that film, and they were probably able to sell DVDs. I mean, there are still people that buy DVDs or digitals rights, individual viewing rights, transactional. They were probably able to sell a lot of those based off of the word of mouth from those church screenings. So I know we're at the end of our time. I'll be available, but I've been doing the church movie event side for a long time because when I was a youth pastor, I used to rent a film, show it, and then you'd send it back to the distributors. But there's a lot of opportunities if you can make something that the church can use. Don't use the church for marketing, make something that the church can use.
Please give them a hand. Thank you guys so much for coming out here, giving us all your wisdom.